The Miami Dolphins are entering the 2025 season with more uncertainty than they've had in years. After missing the playoffs for the first time under head coach Mike McDaniel, a team that once seemed like a rising powerhouse now looks more like a puzzle missing key pieces. The explosive offense that made them one of the most exciting teams in the NFL has started to show cracks. The defense, once a unit brimming with potential, now has noticeable gaps. The roster, once thought to be built for a deep playoff run, suddenly looks fragile, with key players aging, contracts weighing heavy on the salary cap, and free agency threatening to strip away even more talent. If 2024 was supposed to be the Dolphins' big moment, 2025 feels more like a desperate attempt to cling to relevance. The question is, what comes next? How does this team, which once looked so close to breaking through, avoid falling apart completely? Nothing sums up the uncertainty more than the state of the offensive line. It has been an issue since the moment McDaniel arrived, and despite all the talk of improvement, it continues to be a problem. The Dolphins are simply not physical enough up front. They struggle to create space in the run game. They collapse in short yardage situations, and they have a hard time protecting their quarterback when it matters most. And now, with tackle Terron Armstead once again considering retirement, it's possible that the most reliable piece of this already shaky unit might not even be there in 2025. What happens then? How do the Dolphins fix an issue that has plagued them for so long? It's not just about drafting one offensive lineman and hoping for the best. It's about building a unit that can hold up over an entire season, that can stand up to the best defensive fronts in the league, and that can keep Tua Tagovailoa on his feet long enough for the offense to function the way it's supposed to. Because if they don't fix this, everything else falls apart. And speaking of things that could fall apart, what exactly is going on with the tight end situation? The Dolphins run a system that leans heavily on 21 personnel, which means tight ends play a crucial role in both the passing and running game. But there's a problem. None of the options currently on the roster are reliable blockers. Jonnu Smith was brought in to add depth, but his blocking has always been suspect. Durham Smythe has had his moments, but he's not the long-term answer. This offense needs someone who can do both, block well enough to help in the run game, and serve as a receiving threat when needed. Without that, the Dolphins' offense becomes predictable, and predictability is a death sentence in the NFL. Defenses have already started to figure out Miami's tendencies, and unless the team finds a way to be more versatile, they're going to keep running into the same problems over and over again. Then there's the defense, which is facing just as many questions, if not more. Jalen Ramsey is still one of the best corners in the league, but he can't do it alone. The Dolphins tried to address this issue by drafting Cam Smith, but so far, that move hasn't panned out the way they hoped. He hasn't developed into the player they expected him to be. And now Miami finds itself with a glaring hole on the opposite side of the field. Kendall Fuller was supposed to be part of the solution, but he was released earlier this offseason, making the situation even worse. The reality is that if Miami doesn't address this issue, teams are going to exploit it all season long. They're going to pick apart the secondary, avoiding Ramsey and going after whoever is lined up on the other side. This isn't just a minor concern. It's a potential disaster waiting to happen. And while we're on the topic of potential disasters, what exactly is going on with the wide receiver situation? For the last 2 years, the Dolphins have had one of the most explosive receiver duos in the league with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. But things are starting to look a little less certain. Hill's future with the team is suddenly up in the air. There have been whispers, some subtle, some not so subtle, that he might not be around much longer. If he leaves, everything changes. Waddle is a great player, but he's not Hill. There's no one else on the roster who can replicate what Hill brings to the offense. And even if Hill stays, the depth behind him and Waddle is alarmingly thin. There's no real size, no real consistency, nothing that makes you feel confident that this unit can withstand an injury to one of its stars. And given that both Hill and Waddle have had their share of injuries, that's a major concern. Then there's the elephant in the room, Tua Tagovailoa. The quarterback position has been a constant topic of debate in Miami, and that's not going to change anytime soon. When Tua is healthy and everything is clicking, the offense looks unstoppable. But that's the problem. He hasn't always been healthy, and when things start to go wrong around him, The offense struggles. The Dolphins have stuck by him. But for how much longer? Are they really going to commit to him long-term? Or are they going to start looking for other options? There's already been talk about the team potentially drafting a quarterback. Maybe not in the first round, but at some point in the draft. Maybe as a backup plan. Maybe as a message to Tua that nothing is guaranteed. Either way, this is a situation that isn't going away, and it's going to be a major storyline throughout the season.